In a market defined by uncertainty, where every second counts, one opportunity can change everything. Are you ready to make your move? The time is now! Welcome to the Dream is Real podcast.
Hi, and thanks for tuning in to the Dream is Real podcast. This is the place if you're looking to buy, sell, invest, or advance your career in real estate. Before we get started, make sure that you like, share, subscribe, turn on those notifications. Don't want you to miss an episode as we continue to bring you great content and great guests. Today is no different. I'm here with Jimmy Bissett of Absolute Property Care. Jimmy, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you guys. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about you, about Absolute Property Care.
Yes, so born and raised here, Long Island. It's moved around a little bit, but I'm living out east now. Got a beautiful wife, 4 crazy kids,
Awesome.
A couple of dogs, a couple of other things going on, so we're got a busy family. But
It's the American dream right there.
That's right. I mean, that's it, man. I'm on my way. So, but yeah, my main business is property management, Absolute Property Care. We're out east in the Hamptons and the North Fork of Long Island. We manage high-end luxury houses out there. So we do simple checks all the way to concierge services, whatever our clients need.
How did you get into the industry?
Just like everything else, it evolves over time, right? So I had a painting and power washing company that I'm still involved with now. We did a good job. We were working on these houses, and when someone likes you, they ask you, what else do you do? So I said, what do you need, right? What do you need? What can we help you with? And one thing led to another. I had a bunch of my own residential rental properties myself, so I was already managing those, not as a luxury scale, regular single family homes, a couple multifamilies. And we worked for a couple of property managers. I liked the business concept of it, and I said, hey, let's give it a shot. So here we are.
So property management is pretty broad.
Yeah.
Right. Anybody sitting in that chair saying they do property management, you could be talking about buildings, could be talking about complexes.
Yeah.
Where does your positioning fall mainly with that? Is it direct with the homeowner, or are you also managing rental portfolios?
Yeah, so we are pretty much directly with the homeowner. We're high-end residential, so we don't do any. I got a couple commercial spots that I do manage. So I'm not doing any big apartment buildings or larger HOAs. So we're single-family residential out east. So we're I'm working directly with the homeowner. Just taking care of their assets out there that they enjoy in the summertime or holidays, whatever it might be, vacation home. Whatever they need. So I'm directly with them. I'm not managing the those apartment buildings. Or at least not yet.
Has anything changed in the way that you do business over the course of the past few years?
Everything. With obviously technology is something that's always changing. It's definitely helped my business. With just simple thermostats and opening doors and locking alarms and all that stuff and cameras. So I'm able to remotely check on properties without physically, going there. We always want to double check, make sure those things are working, but that has definitely helped out without a doubt. So technology is a big help for sure in my field.
So, other than obviously the working directly with the homeowner, what would you say is the overlying responsibility if you had to put it in a job description as far as your value proposition to the property owner?
Yeah, so they pretty much put everything on me. A lot of these people, whether they come from the city or down south, they might have not actually owned a house before, whether they're living in an apartment where they got the walls that are around them, then nothing else they really have to worry about. So that's my job. You know, I've been in that. I've managed my own rentals. So it's, you know, it's the utility room. You know, it's the brains of the house. You know, the HVAC system, the electric, the plumbing, all that stuff. I make sure all that is up and running properly, you know, for these clients.
So in the event where someone has been, you know, in an apartment, a penthouse, their whole life, and obviously there are mechanisms in place to care for the maintenance around that. Do you feel as if your position is also maybe thinking where they wouldn't even know to look, especially being somebody who has history with rental properties? You've got to be on top of a lot of things.
Oh yeah. So you might have some rental properties. You know, we've all seen the bad, the ugly. You know, the nasty stuff. You know, whether it's a fire, floods, this and that. You know, and we try to prevent that. You know, preventative maintenance. That's the name of my game. You know, so we're always checking, going around, making sure the humidity levels are right, the AC's working, you know, making sure everything's good and keeping up with the maintenance, you know what I mean? Because a lot of people are like, oh, what's my utility room? What's that? You know, they don't know where that stuff is, and that's usually where the emergencies, you know, happen. That's where the bad stuff happens. So
Sure.
I always, you know, I have great vendors that I work with, you know, they come in, they help me, you know, do the real maintenance on it, but I'm always just keeping an eye and seeing those little changes throughout the house, you know, throughout the year and the seasons of, you know, what's changing to make sure and, you know, stay on top of that, do inspections. You know.
How important is overall maintenance to not only the value of the home, but to your point, the avoidance of major problems down the road?
Yeah. Well, it's, you know, you're in real estate, you sell houses, right? You know, it's that first look, right? So from the outside to the in, right? So we always, you know, the outside, you got to keep it clean. You got to do this. You want to, you know, make sure that the trees are trimmed up, the bushes are, you know, once something gets too big, sometimes you gotta cut it down or totally replace it. And what's the cost of that, right? So if you just little by little keep trimming things around, and then the maintenance is huge. You know what I mean?
Isn't that true in every area of life, whether you're talking about your landscaping or you're talking about your own physical self?
Exactly.
If you let something go,
it's right.
Eventually it's going to cost you more.
Exactly.
To
you know,
do
it's harder to you know, get off, you know, 20, 50 pounds, you know, instead of just, you know, keeping it right there, you know. So same thing with the houses. It's important. The maintenance is really important. You know, all the, you know, some of these houses, you know, 10, 20, 30 million dollar homes, you know what I mean? Some of this stuff, you need an engineering degree to, you know, to read it, you know. So the maintenance is really key, making sure everything is tuned, is cleaned well, you know, and just really performing the way it should be, you know, because again, then something breaks, that's that large expense. Or if they go to sell the house, you know what I mean? Okay, now you got to fix that. Does that come off the top line?
And then they're looking at you saying, didn't you see
happened?
this coming?
Yeah. Exactly. You know, stuff happens.
Look,
you know what I mean? The things do happen. There's things that I can't, you know, that I can't foresee. But you know, if I do my best and I try, and you know, if I see something, I say something, and I get it fixed. If there's a leak, if there's a mark, you know, whatever it is, you know, that's mine. And a lot of people, even for yourself, you know, you're in your house. All of a sudden you're like, oh wow, that house is dirty. What the hell? You know, you don't realize, you know. But for me, when I'm not living there every day, even though I'm there every week, I still see those changes.
Yeah, I think there is something to that, right? You're in a place, you kind of get adjusted to the way it looks, or maybe just is not the word.
Yeah.
But you walking in as this is your office.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
This is your job. So.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about vendor relationships.
Yeah.
Pretty much on you to source 50%, 75%, 100% of the vendor relationships?
It's all over the board, you know, depending on where I come in to the client, you know, how I get introduced to them, whether it's a new build, right? So let's say it's a new build house, brand new, everything's there. Sometimes the guys that install the stuff, you know, the systems, you know, usually I'll use them, you know, if they're good. Sometimes they install them, they might not service them that good, but they installed it. They know where the pipes are, they know where this is, they know, you know, they know the ins and outs, you know, especially the electric and the plumbing. You know, it's behind that wall over here, you know, stuff like that. So I try and keep them on. Or if I come in, let's say someone's been living there. All right, what vendor? Oh, I love that plumber. I love my landscaper. That's great. You know what I mean? That's more people in my book.
As I was going to say, it's another relationship that you can then cultivate as well.
If they don't like them or they're doing a bad job, yes, I've got a million people, in my phone book. I mean, that's the name of my game. You know what I mean? It's all about the relationships, and at the end of the day, I do a little bit of the work, but I need them to. It's my name, right? It's right. On me if it's a bad job,
Well, it sounds like you have a real advantage because of the power washing company, right? So you know what it's like to one, keep property looking beautiful, or to arrive and make sure that that's the case.
Yeah.
And also work with the homeowner in a way that they're satisfied.
Yeah.
So I would only assume that you've built a skill set and an eye for what it takes to get a good vendor. So my question to you, I think, would be helpful to almost everybody in our audience, whether they're a sole property homeowner or they own multiple properties. Give me a sense of how you vet good vendors for the maintenance of a property.
Sometimes you learn the hard way, you know what I mean, by maybe using a friend or someone like that. That's, they might not do the best job, unfortunately, you know what I mean? But it's just, with social media these days, and, you want to use your network, you know what I mean? Hey, go on Facebook, Instagram. Who's got a good plumber? Who can recommend this guy's great? You know what I mean? It goes back to the Yelp days, and you know what I mean. It's the reviews, right? You look at the reviews. He's clean. He's
word of mouth
good.
2.0. Yeah.
That's the best. You know what I mean? Instead of calling up someone on Google that you don't know and what their job is. You know what I mean? They could say they do a good job. So it's over the years, you know what I mean, of using friends and families and other, contractors, builders. Hey, who do you recommend? Use this guy. He's good. You know what I mean? And then it comes down to the relationship too. You know what I mean? And for me, like sometimes it's like, usually it's an emergency if I need you sometimes, right? So, it's good to have those big companies that have a lot of people, but also those small guys too that can really just, give me a helping hand when in need. That's because usually it's, especially out there, it's, oh, this happened, I can't wait. It needs to be done now.
It needs to be done now. Yeah.
It needs to be done now. You
got a busted pipe, or you need a cesspool company. It's not something that's a few days. No,
and that's what's a lot of people that they call me. Hey, Jimmy, you got a guy for this or that? Because they know what I do. You know what I mean? I've got everyone, like you name it, from the landscaper to the plumber to selling it to painting, designer, whatever it is. I've got a relationship, someone that I've seen their work, I can trust, and I can refer them to as well.
As you've learned your industry, what do you think is the trickiest part of what you do? Maybe the most challenging.
Trickiest part. That's good. It's kind of, I guess it's the, foreseeing in the future I guess the trickiest part is actually, being the luxury, being the, these people come out in the summertime. It's always, what do they want? What are they going to need? What are they going to see? People are always changing. It's always, last minute things, that my client may need. Oh, I got a big party tomorrow. You didn't tell me about this. I did. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's me kind of being proactive and almost asking them, hey, give me an outlook. What do we got going on in the next 2 months so I can prepare? You know what I mean?
Yeah. How do you navigate that? You said something interesting earlier about how you can actually, with the technology, you don't necessarily have to be on property all the time. Whereas when you first started, was that
it was getting there. It was getting there. You know what I mean? It was usually just like the thermostats, and some cameras. You know what I mean? So the thermostats are great. Hey, I'm coming out this weekend. No problem. Boop, boop, boop. Put the AC on, put the heat up, whatever it is. I'll always do a walkthrough first because you never know. Something might have broke. Something might have this. Whatever it is. But if it's a last minute thing, I always, it's definitely has assisted me for sure.
How do you manage those relationships though in that capacity without having to be on site all the time?
With my clients, or it's it's the same thing. Like, hey, and whether I'm watching it with technology or physically, whatever it is, and I've got different programs for everyone on what they physically need, how much they use the house, So there's a lot of different things, like you said. Whatever house you live in, you see what evolves around it. What's the need be, and every house is different. Every person's different. So
it's about being present, and I had a good
Yeah.
friend say, best ability is availability, right? If they need
Yeah.
something, need you there.
Exactly. So from Memorial Day to Labor Day, I'm running around, doing things, whatever they might need, and it's we've gotten to that concierge level too. Like, hey, I gotta go run back to the city. You got someone to watch my dog? Yeah, no problem.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? I got this, or can you let my dog out? Can you get the cleaning ladies here? Whatever it is, we just get it done. We get it done.
And what part of your past, being the home services business to your own, rental portfolio, what skills have you picked up along the way that you think, play really well to your success right now?
Yeah, it's really, from the power washing, everything gets dirty. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, wow, everything, you start really looking around and noticing all the dirty things, and that leads from the outside to the inside. And then, as I was starting out with the property management, I was doing a lot of the maintenance myself, fixing this, fixing that, so you're just learning those little skills, and again, thank God for, YouTube and technology.
Right.
How do you fix this? I can't be there for 2 days. Oh man, I got to get this done. All right, that was easy. When I get the tool, I get this, I call someone, it's just using your resources, and getting it done. So I've learned a lot over the years, from carpentry to plumbing, electric, whatever it is. Then I'm like, I got to get it done. I can't wait for that person. It's an emergency. They're coming out. Getting dirty, digging, plowing, snow. Whatever it is. I've gotten dirty. I've done it, and that's it. You just got to get it done. So I've learned how to take care of things, so I know how it's done. You know what I mean? Now that I've grown, I got a couple people working with me, and I'm more proactive on things. I can now say, okay, you go do that, you go do that. So it's definitely evolved in that way. But I know how to get it done. I'm not just sitting there and, saying, what's going on here?
Just pointing, saying, do that.
So I know if they're messing around or whatever. So it's like, all right, this is the issue. I've assessed it. And this is what needs to get done. You know what I mean? Instead of sometimes you're like, oh, I got to come and check it out. No, this is the problem. Bring this tool, bring this pipe, bring this, whatever it might be, and install it and fix it, So you're saving my time and money as well.
There's no doubt that we are on the cusp of kind of a technology revolution with AI, and we really don't even know everything that's going to be in the home, even probably 5 years from now.
Yeah.
How have you stayed up to date with technology? To your point, it went from a couple thermostats and surveillance to a lot more now. How has that curve been, and how do you stay on top of that stuff?
Yeah, it's I'm looking at like AI, like, hey, how can I use this, right? It's like, all right, the property management, like how can I actually use this? So I'm asking AI, how do I use you, right? It's almost like give me the tricks.
There is something to that.
Yeah,
is using the projects, even like in ChatGPT.
Yeah,
create an AI mastery project and say, all right, you teach me how to use you. I've seen that be very successful.
Yeah.
So what are some things that you're doing?
Yeah, from that, you know what I mean? Back to just the simple technology of the smart houses and stuff like that. That's helped a lot. You know what I mean? I can literally control the whole house, garage doors, lights, this, that. So that's kind of like, okay, yeah, that's cool. That's happened now. So like, all right, now AI for me, it's more on the back end, right? Of like marketing, social media, emails, automating things, right? For myself to free up so I can be out there, meeting people, creating new relationships, not worrying about sending out emails or job forms or this or that, So that's how I'm trying to use AI now, is really the automation on the back end and the social media, creating posts to educate people and talk about property management, all that stuff. That's how I'm using it right now. Yeah.
So when are you taking the turn into robotics? Because I think that's what's coming up next, right?
Yeah, I know. Just I'll have. Well, it's funny. Like I talk to like my landscapers. My neighbor's got one of those automatic mowers.
Yeah.
I'm like,
oh yeah,
that thing it's beautiful. I want to get one for my house. And I told my guy, I'm like, dude, you better do figure out something with these, or
Yeah.
you know what I mean. You're gonna just be weeding and weed whacking. So, and I was talking to one guy, and I'm like, maybe we can, I would buy one for each house and then maintain it. You know what I mean? So it's like, all right, I'm not out of business yet, but like here, like that thing still needs maintenance, just like any other
Right.
tool, right? So, hey, there it is.
Yeah, why buy one and store it? When,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, that's what I mean. You're like, all right, this is mine. You're pretty much like leasing it from me. I'm gonna maintain it, make sure it's doing the right job. So simple things like
because
that.
your clientele doesn't really want to vet the best automatic,
Yeah.
automatic
Oh, exactly. And
lawnmower.
that's why they lean on me for like everything. You know what I mean? For, hey, Jimmy, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Well, like you said, like from technology, where I'm putting in a new sauna. He's like, all right, well, whatever you think, Jim. Like, this is your field. You know what it is. So, and I feel like that's how I can give back to my clients. The knowledge of not necessarily just technology, but my vendors. I try and do a little bit of everything, you know what I mean? Physically, whether it's health, wellness, real estate, business, I really try to educate myself so then I can give back and, give my 2 cents. And,
Sure. So learning for two is the way I've heard it put, right?
Yeah.
So you learn it in a way that you could also share it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So as someone who has had and maybe still has a rental portfolio, a lot
Yep.
of our audience is either looking into getting into real estate investing or has that started or is at some level. What advice would you give the individual that wants to use real estate to build legacy wealth?
I love it. It's, you look at all the, the big players out there, the millionaires and billionaires, and, what's their main, they might have not made their millions by that, you know what I mean? But that's what keeps creating their wealth and giving some of that, more passive income. Like again, when I was 20 something years old, I, met someone, I was up in PA, I bought like 30 properties, boom, 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 boom. And I was like, this is great. The cash flow coming in, you know what I mean? They were beat up, they were really beat up. So, but that, that helped me, I learned how to fix things and do this and manage the right people, but nowadays, and then I sold that and, kids and this and that, you know what I mean? We transitioned. But now I'm getting back in. I'm like, all right, I gotta start picking up my, my cash flow here with my residential properties. So, this past year I bought, 4 single family homes, out of state, kind of dealing with someone like me. They have their property manager. I pay them a percentage, and
Sure.
and they deal with everything. You know what I mean? And
you know what you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a long game. You know what I mean? There's a million things from flipping houses to wholesaling to that's a full-time job, what I see. The guys that are really doing it and have, making money doing it, that's what they do, So like a rental property, you, me, anyone can go get it, can go get a rental property. Make sure your numbers are good.
Sure.
A lot of people doing the Airbnbs, that's
You feel like that's a dying breed right now?
I know. I mean, I manage a couple Airbnbs. I have friends that have Airbnbs. You know what I mean? I've used Airbnb. I think it's great. I don't think it's dying. I think the landlord, that actually owns it is making less money. You know what I mean? Because those companies are so big. Their fees just keep cranking up. Right. So when I manage it too, I'm like, man, they're taking so. They're boom, 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 like taking so much fees. My buddy's that he's got a couple properties in Vermont. He's like, I made more money 10 years ago, because just everyone's got one now.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So the competition is higher. So all right, he's still making money, but not as much as he would, and all the other expenses has gone up. So that you really just got to do your due diligence. Talk to someone like you or like me, someone that has actually done it. And say and put it all out there. Like for me, it's whether it's taxes, lay it out. If I do this, what am I going to pay? If I do this, what am I going to pay? Or what am I going to actually? How much am I going to make? Is it $200 a month? Is it $2,000 a month? What are we working with? So it really comes down to numbers. You know what I mean? A rental property. There's keep the emotion out of it. No emotion. Let it. Don't worry about the fixtures and this and that. Like a couple of properties I never even saw. I saw pictures of it, went there, I was like, awesome, looks good. It's making me this much a month. I'm happy with that,
Got it.
So I think it's great. And again, like I'm on that roll now where I'm like, all right, if I could buy 2 a year, 3 a year, whatever it is. And these are not that crazy, they're $150,000 properties, $180,000, you put down 30, 40 grand on it, save up, boom, buy another, save up, boom, buy another one. Living in New York, those numbers are a little bit different, and you got to look at that too, right? You got to look at the laws, the regulations of, what it takes to, have a rental. What happens if someone doesn't, we all hear the horror stories.
Yep. New York's not always landlord
No,
friendly.
it's not a landlord
sense.
friendly,
But that probably shouldn't
months.
deter someone who wants to be here.
No, I know guys that have hundreds of rentals on Long Island, and they're killing it. Making so much money, you know what I mean? But they know the game, they know how it's done, and you got, again, getting that right tenant in. That's important. I've had some ugly stories, I've bought some ugly stories, where they had, drug addicts and bad things and people that know how to beat the system, unfortunately.
But would you say overall, the lifestyle, the opportunity, it's worth it?
I think so. You know what I mean? There's people that are like, it's just not for me. That one call gets, a little anxiety. Like, I can't deal with it. I'm like, it's fine. It's not, the house isn't burning down. They just didn't have hot water for a couple hours. It's okay. You know what I mean? It's no big deal. But again, that goes back to setting up the house right, making sure, that's like always thing. If you buy a house, make sure the plumbing, heating, electric is all good. So you really don't have to worry about that stuff. Yes, things do happen, leaks happen, but get those big things out of the way, make sure that's good. And then, and then after that, you put a lot on the renter, and I think it's great. A lot of people don't have the stomach for it, but I think it's great. Your money's working for you. Your houses are appreciating. The tenant's paying down your mortgage if you have a mortgage. Great tax benefits. I think it checks so many boxes. But you got other guys that are like, hey man, I kill it in marketing. I do this. I make a shit ton of money. Doing that, and I don't need to. Cool, no problem. So more for me. That's
Fair enough.
So I love it. I think it's great. I think it's an asset that everyone's gonna need a house. But don't just jump into it. Do your research, but pull the trigger sooner than later if you're definitely interested in it.
Well, it sounds like you have a great thing going. Sounds like if somebody were to hire you to care for their property, you'd be proactive, you'd care, you'd be an incredible help to them. How would our audience get in contact with you?
Yeah, so on social medias, Absolute Property Care is my Instagram, or the.jimmyj is my personal social there. So happy to reach out. Let me know if you guys any real estate questions, real estate advice, house watching. Again, like I mainly do the luxury, but if you got other house on Long Island, you go down to Florida for the winter time. Happy to take a look at it every other week, make sure nothing's broken and everything's good when you come back. So I got programs for everyone, But I love to talk real estate, love to talk business. Love to create new relationships with people, what other businesses people are in and how we can help each other. So it doesn't always have to be about real estate. It's just, that's what we're in. But, happy to talk about anything and create new relationships with people.
Awesome, Jimmy. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
And thank you for tuning in. This is the Dream is Real podcast. If you want to find us on Instagram or TikTok, it's at Dream Select Home. On X, at Dream Select Realty. If you want to be part of the program, email us at hometeam@dreamselectrealty.com. We will see you next time. And remember, the dream is real.